The Tempest in 10 by Jacob Devine. Act 1 Thematic Statement. Elements of revenge are present throughout Act 1, making it a central theme responsible for developing the plot in the opening act of The Tempest. Quote supporting the thematic statement. Hast thou, spirit, performed to the point the tempest that I bade thee? This quote from Prospero is questioning Ariel if he had helped to wreck the ship alongside the use of the magical cloak to set his plan for vengeance into action. Prospero summons a storm, which causes his brother Antonio and King Alonso, along with the other crewmates, to become scattered across the island. Stranding them on the island is one of the initial steps in Prospero's revenge against those who betrayed him, especially his brother Antonio, who stole his life from him 12 years earlier. Prospero's desire for revenge stems from the actions of his brother Antonio, who stole his title as the Duke of Milan and sent him out to sea where he would likely perish. Prospero survives and commands Ariel, whom he freed from Sycorax, to aid him in the execution of his vengeful desires. Real-world connection to the thematic statement. There are many accounts of revenge throughout history. For example, when Julius Caesar was assassinated by members of the Roman Senate, Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius Longinus, whom he personally knew. In 44 BCE, Caesar was killed by these men because of the disrespect that Caesar had treated them with, personal reasons, and he sent other members of the Senate off to die during the Civil War. Their motives were rooted in a collective plan for vengeance. Similar to Brutus and Cassius, Prospero seeks revenge against someone who personally betrayed him. Prospero hatches a plan to repay the harm done onto him by his brother Antonio, which directly shapes the course of the play. Similarly, the initial plan and execution of Julius Caesar is a pivotal event in Roman history, playing a key role in the downfall of the Roman Empire, along with many future events. Secondary source. This source examines Prospero's godlike rule over the island, using his knowledge of magic to carry out his plan for vengeance. The author states in this article that Prospero takes his plan too far by keeping Caliban and Ariel as slaves. With his extreme power, combined with a plot for vengeance, he plans to use his power to serve justice to those who betrayed him. Lastly, this source states that the acquisition of revenge eventually leads to forgiveness. Act 2 Thematic Statement. Power is a major theme in Act 2, as within the craving for it, the characters show their true colors, which provides plot and character development. Quote supporting the thematic statement. And yet methinks I in thy face what thou shouldest be. Thy occasion speaks thee, and my strong imagination sees a crown dropping upon thy head. This quote by Antonio is a part of the conversation between him and Sebastian, where he is trying to convince him to kill Alonso and Gonzalo to take their throne for themselves. The power-hungry schemers are a perfect example of how power and control influence the play heavily through the chase for it as well as the impact of its authority. Greed triumphs over goodness of humanity in the craving for power. Alonso and Gonzalo awake before the attack, denying Sebastian and Antonio from Alonso's crown. Trinculo, Stefano, and Caban also express the same desire for power within Act 2, sharing the theme displayed by the previous quote. Real-world connection to the thematic statement. Joseph Stalin's reign from the early 1920s to 1953 was one of tyranny and was maintained through a tight grip on his extreme power. On his path to becoming the leader of the communist regime, he got lots of blood on his hands. He executed those who did not support him, ruling the nation with fear, which allowed him to maintain his chokehold on his position of authority. Similarly, in Act 2, there are multiple examples of individuals craving power. Antonio was prepared to kill his former friend Alonso if it meant that he could obtain power over others. Both individuals are corrupted by their lust for power, which brings to light their true values and desires. Secondary source. This source contains insightful observations about power in relationships, including the examination of the direct authority and the idea of sovereignty. Lee concludes that Prospero's clear position above Caliban in the power dynamic is what causes him to revolt against Prospero. Differences in power within relationships in The Tempest often lead to conflict. Lastly, when Gonzalo proposes a socialist system with equal rights and without sovereignty, he is mocked. Power dynamics between characters plays a key role in shaping their interactions/emotions. Act 3. Thematic Statement. Manipulation is a common theme in Act 3, used by Prospero to torment enemies, test relationships, and control Ariel. Quote supporting the thematic statement: Thou liest. Ariel, under Prospero's command, speaks in Trinculo's voice while invisible. He accuses Stefano of lying, creating conflict within the group. Prospero manipulates the situation through Ariel to eventually obtain the outcome that he wants. This is only one example of manipulation within Act 3, as he also checks in on Miranda and Ferdinand, as their whole relationship was crafted out of Prospero's carefully planned manipulation. Prospero pulls strings within multiple relationship dynamics to fulfill his desires. Real-world connection to the thematic statement. One real-world, everyday example of manipulation is scamming call centers. They prey on naive individuals looking to fix a problem, and then through lying and deception, they manipulate the person into getting what they want. In Act 3 of The Tempest, Prospero continues to monitor the relationship between Miranda and Ferdinand. In both the scamming call centers and in Act 3, the people are unknowingly falling into the trap that the manipulator has set for them. Act 4. Thematic statement. The theme of fear is a driving factor behind many of the decisions made in Act 4, serving to progress the play from the following action into the conclusion. Quote supporting thematic statement. I had forgot the foul conspiracy of the beast at Caliban and his confederates against my life. The minute of their plot is almost come. Well done, avoid no more. Prospero remembers that Trinculo, Stefano, and Caliban are plotting to attack Prospero and steal his position of power. Out of fear for his life, he quickly shifts his attention to warding off the group through their use of spirits disguised as dogs. Then the trio retreats out of fear once they see that they are being chased. The theme of fear creates scenes filled with emotion and action. Lastly, without it, Prospero would not have tried to ward off the trio, which possibly could have led to him being killed or overthrown. Real-world connection to the thematic statement. Humans often feel fear, which is an indication of that they are in danger and need to find safety. For example, the evacuation of Dunkirk through the British Channel. If it were not for fear, over 300,000 Allied would have been captured by the German forces. The elevated level of fear amongst the soldiers led them to escape their dire situation by any means necessary. Similarly, in the play, fear is a main factor within the decisions that are made. In both cases, individuals escape death while invoking intense emotions. Act 5. Thematic statement. Peace is the main theme in Act 5, as Prospero forgives Alonso, renounces further use of magic, releases Ariel, and prepares to leave the Isle to his return to his position as the Duke of Milan. Quote supporting thematic statement. Though with their high wrongs I am struck to that quick, yet with nobler reason gainst my fury too I take part. The rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance. This quote takes place in a conversation between Prospero and Ariel. Prospero decides to forgive those who wronged him rather than punishing them. He also gives up his use of magic and frees Ariel, signifying the end of his role of power, manipulation of others, and plan for vengeance. Peace is restored and soon everyone is to return safely to Milan. This quote is evidence of Prospero choosing peace over revenge. Real-world connection to thematic statement. Nelson Mandela was a civil rights activist in South Africa who played an instrumental role in bringing an end to the apartheid. The South African government sent him to jail for 27 years because of his efforts in combating systematic racism. When he got out, rather than wielding his power for personal gain or seeking vengeance for the injustice, he chose a path of forgiveness. Prospero makes the same choice, choosing peace over revenge. In the end, Prospero and Mandela provided freedom to those who depended on them. Secondary source. This source examines Prospero's character development throughout the play and suggests that Prospero finding peace after all he had been through is a testament to divine human potential. Charles Boyce examines Prospero as his character evolves as the play progresses. First, he's a student of magic, then seeks revenge through testing magic, but in the end, he eventually gives it up. This source emphasizes the point that giving up his magic/power and choosing peace instead is a testament to embracing his humanity.